Hi loves, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm gonna give you guys 5 seconds to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Alright loves, if you're already part of the channel, welcome back. This video is going to be why is there a divide between the African Americans in this country and the African immigrants. So if you want to know why there's a divide and what ways we can fix that and bridge the gap, then keep on watching.
So I'm just going to touch upon based on the way the culture is sort of set up here, and we have to start off with like our cultural values, all right? And how it's viewed in this country and how we've grown organically, like the black community has grown in this country and how it's viewed all over the world, all right? Where we're portrayed in the media. So my standpoint is a lot of the media promotes a lot of like violence. We see it like a lot of black people, and it has to do with like a lot of our, what we like to portray is we portray a lot of pain, suffering, like violence, you know, incarceration, things to do with the law, you know what I mean? And a negative note, like drugs, you know what I mean? Consumerism, and a lot of things that aren't really prevalent in a typical society. And a lot of Black African Americans, we only view America through the lens of what's being portrayed to them through that media. Exactly. So in the Western, especially in the Western culture. So I know a lot of the music, even it goes down to the music, the movies, and the media, which is like the epicenter, which we're so prevalent on. Like the black community has a huge influence on this, and it comes to sports. I think sports is on the top of that. You know what I mean? Sports is definitely on the top. It all has to do come down to performance. You know, we're always looked at as performers, and it's a great thing. We're a huge like machine when it comes to being very influential within society. You know. But there's a lot of negative connotations that follow that, and a lot of our parents, a lot of our predecessors look at that as, okay, that's not what we're really about. We take value in our education, like family, you know, family virtues, art, in a positive manner, spirituality, especially going to church or going to the mosque, or whatever your religion, you know. There's a big foothold, which I feel like there's a big disconnect when they view the Western culture and society. You know, the affluence isn't really highlighted. It's usually put in the back burner, and what's really highlighted is like the degeneracy, the way, like my dad, like when growing up, there's a lot of negative connotations, you know, when he moved to this country, he saw that he didn't like the sagging of the pants, you know what I mean, the cursing, you know what I mean, the way we carried ourselves, you know, and it's sort of, and it's painted in that light over time, you know, especially in the early 90s and the early 2000s when I was growing up. It was just like, oh, like why are we consumers? Why do you take so much pride in the way you look and why is that prioritized over the content of what you're really going to produce? Like where's the wholesomeness in that, you know? Yeah. And a lot of that culture was just being pushed in our face, you know, and that's where the divide is. That's where I think where a lot of that divide comes from. Yeah. In our culture. Yeah. If you want to piggyback off that.
You know, I definitely think that our parents, when they came to this country, they were given this notation in their head back home, like, okay, like Black Americans don't, I wouldn't say, it sounds so harsh, but people in our parents' generation thought that Black Americans, especially in the 80s and 90s, really didn't amount to anything. Like they were wasting their common privilege on just
their freedoms,
on just useless things, right? And they were like, you know, I guess our parents and our parents' generation used to just compare, like, well, if I was born in that country, I would have been doing this, and that. And it's just so hard. Like, I understand where our parents are coming from, but then I understand where Black Americans are coming from, because the system that was built in this country was prepared for them to fail. It was like we're gonna have all these people start all the way on here on this start of the race, and then we're gonna have all the Black Americans start half a mile back, and they're trying to catch up to the rest of the group of people because they already had basically a bad start. So I feel like it's hard to say like, oh, you know, if I was born in this country, I've been doing this and that. And, you know, our parents' generation during Ronald Reagan's presidency, there was a time where it was a high influx on immigrants coming to this country.
War on drugs.
And
emerged.
Ronald Reagan really appreciated immigrants coming to that country in the 80s because he knew that it was going to bring more work, more people of excellence to do good in this society, right? That wasn't a good take on Black Americans. They didn't like that.
Yeah.
Especially the Africans that came in here and took over the job market. And then they had this thing, well, why are you guys coming in here talking, you know, African Americans and African immigrants, there's this inner tension that I just can't really pinpoint on, but the way Black Americans used to say like, you know, Africans come in here, they talk to us any type of way, it's very degrading. They used to always say like, Africans would come here and like basically degrade Black Americans, and they felt that that was crazy because we all look the same and we're supposed to basically come into this country and basically be welcoming with open arms.
I think within our system and society today, it's grown. A lot of that has changed, it's shifted, it's gotten a lot better, you know what I mean? Like I said, but a lot of it comes out to the media and the systemic setbacks that we've already been faced in this country as a whole. I'm talking about African or Black people as a whole. Whether you're ethnic or whether you're a native here or like you've had 5 or 6 generations, you know, we're kind of in between that because yeah, we're first generation, but we've been in this country long enough. We were born here as well, you know. And being in our early 30s, we're looking at it from a standpoint where, okay, yes, we were first generation and we were made fun of because of our culture. You know what I mean? We're around for that era, and now it's being more accepted. There's a lot more awareness when it comes to the social norms and like African culture is being a lot more embraced than it was 20 years plus ago.
Yeah.
So where I'm coming from at that standpoint is that, where can we come together? We can. I can kind of give you that note from 2 different ends on what's being looked down upon. You know, like we look down upon a disenfranchised demographic in this country. You know, that was set up for us to fail. You know what I mean? We weren't meant to succeed. We came here through slavery. Our history is very distorted. You know, even though we are heading in a much better demographic today, you know, we cannot, one thing I just have to put my foot down on is that we cannot blame the setbacks that we had in the past for our downfalls today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yes, there's reparations, you know what I mean, that are needed, you know, in other demographics. I'm not going to go into that today. That where we kind of fall short on, but there's a lot of things that it's accountability that needs to take place today, because like we did not grow up through the Jim Crow era. We know we weren't hosed down, you know, and a lot of we focus more on a lot of our Black leaders today, like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, you know what I mean? We look at them as martyrs today, but we didn't really pay attention to the message that they were really, I feel like we kind of like watered down the message that they were really trying to put forth and put out there, you know what I mean? For true inequality and how we're gonna achieve that, and like the standards that were set. You know, we always want to chase, like we always ignore like the standards that need to be met before we can achieve that goal, you know what I mean? Again, chasing the bag, like we like to say, you know what I mean? And really achieving what we need to achieve as a people. You know, we're not, overall, we're not really truly respected, you know, and a lot of the disenfranchised African Americans in this country do have that hard time making that connection with their lineage, you know, the roots and their lineage, because like you see people that are from those countries, you know what I mean, looking down on you, you know what I mean, achieving what they need to achieve because they entered this country at a different era. You know, they're in the 90s, the 2000s, where things
were...
Even
the 80s too.
Even the 80s, okay? They weren't around during the Jim Crow era, so they truly don't understand the hardships that the African Americans went through, you know, the immigrants went through. So that's where we kind of clash heads, you know what I mean? And we need to, and we just sort of need to understand that a little bit better. And I think, like I said, this new up and coming generation is doing a lot better when it comes to awareness. You know a lot better. We're becoming more sophisticated, so we understand those divides. But like still, there's still a lot of ignorance of people that don't have those resources to sort of get that collective information from a big view, you know?
Thank you for bringing up ignorance, you know, because I feel like I've seen both sides in the Black community where there's people that really want to learn about why there is a gap, and there's people that know that there's a gap and don't care.
I think they're just stuck in their ways.
And they're stuck in their ways, and they say things like, well, you know, why would you come to this country if you're gonna be rude or mean to people that look just like you? You might as well just go back to your own country. But I'm just like, this is the land, like, people have to understand, all of these countries around the world look at America as the land of opportunity. So if I know that my country is under turmoil, government-wise, politically, society, like socially, and I know that I can create a better living for me and my family, I'm gonna go anywhere. England, Paris, America, doesn't matter. I'm gonna go to provide that for my family. But I feel like people don't understand that the privilege is literally right in front of them. And they're not taking that initiative to change their lives, regardless of what happened in the past. So when you see somebody that looks like you and come in here and take your job, or is making more money than you in the first year or first 2 years, they're putting their kids in good schools, and you look, it's like the sense of jealousy and envy that I feel like our Black community always has when you see other, like, communities, like the Asian community, Jewish community, all these other communities that stick together regardless of lineage, and they figure it out. They help each other. But it's just, I feel like it's always a disconnect with us.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lack of incentive, and this lack of how we've sort of, the foundation that we sort of grew upon, you know? It's like we were grown up under a different, when you're looking at success and like something to achieve, right? When you're born in this country, and it's, America to the rest of the world is portrayed as the land of the free, right? But when you've grown up in the land of the free and you've lived in a disenfranchised society, you have a different view on that, you know? It took me a long time to really get a full grasp on that, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I just feel like our generation, I think our parents' generation were just so stubborn to not understand where the other side comes from, that they planted that in our heads.
But they had their own
up.
hardship, but they've had their own type of hardship, you know?
So yeah, that's why a lot of our parents be like, well, you know, I've been through worse. Like, think about no heat, no water, you know, killings left and right in front of you. Like, and you have to figure out how you're gonna go walk to school the next day. Like, I feel like our parents are like, okay, it could be way worse, but guess what? You get up and you move on, you go on, you know?
Because we're under a democracy right now, you know. This country, they're chasing after a democracy, because their republic failed. Like a lot of those countries that you look in West Africa, it's going through right now. They're going through corruption, through their turmoil, through their leadership is completely distraught, and this colonialism is the one thing that enabled that to happen. You know, you go in there and you certain colonialism, your customs, kind of diminishing that. So that happened. That happened in West Africa too. So I'm not going to dive too far into that either. You know, maybe in further segments we'll look more into that. But they've come from a disenfranchised, a broken society where where they've seen both sides of that, and they come here. You know what I mean? There's a lot of liberation. You know, like
freedom,
democracy. So that's why you see the the Black community in general is heavily on the democratic side of things. You know what I mean? Look at the democracy. You know, and that sort of. And
had a weird taste in our parents' generation's mouth, basically. It had a rural sour taste.
Yeah, because you're looking at it like look at all the opportunity that you guys have had and like where you guys have come to. You know what I mean? And you don't have much to show for it. You know what I mean? Unless you're bouncing a basketball, you're just stuck into these stereotypes. And like you're not doing anything productive with it. So we're gonna take that opportunity to do that. When you even look at the test scores today, right? In the Black community, when you look at the standardized test scores, it's the West African people that are holding the weight for the Black moving forward. I'm not saying there's not Black excellence within the African American demographic here, you know what I mean? Even though it is on the lower spectrum when you look at the white demographics on the top, you know, the Asians, you know, Eastern Asia is definitely on the top, you know. We're somewhere like on the bottom when it comes to that, you know what I mean? And the school systems, you know, are not the best in the predominantly Black neighborhoods, you know. But when you see who's really carrying the weight of the people that are getting those degrees, the doctor's degree, we're somewhere at the top of that list. You know what I mean? West Africa's on the top of that list.
I mean, Nigerians they just said, there's an article that came out that Nigerians have the highest IQ in the world, and we're talking about in the world. Out of all the countries that you know, Nigerians have the highest IQ. It's just ingrained in us from birth that education is the most important thing. That's something that can nobody can take that away from you. Even death. That's something you literally live and die by.
And that's in our culture.
So like,
but I feel like there's a big difference between like what getting the education is one thing, you know, but education is not, I don't think it's confined, it should be confined to the institutions and a piece of paper, you know what I mean? I feel like
it's more than just a piece
more than just a piece of paper, you know what I mean? It's something, education is something, there's a difference between education and getting your diploma, you know what I mean? I feel like education is something they will never be able to take from you, you know what I mean? Once you acquire this knowledge, once you get it, it's something that it cannot be taken
for
away
life,
from you.
guys.
But
for
like,
life.
it's just getting qualifications to work for a job. You know, the corporate structure and the corporate systems is changing. It's evolving. So you know, a lot of these ideologies that I think our parents sort of instilled in us didn't really fit into the mold of what we were growing into, you know what I mean? The era that we're growing into is a little bit outdated, you know, like just like, especially as the economy changes, you know what I mean?
Outdated.
A lot of entrepreneurial like ventures. People are seeking out new things, you know, and we're not just stuck into this category. Go to college,
gotta be a doctor, gotta be a lawyer, gotta be an engineer.
Yeah, especially it's very similar. It's very similar to the Eastern Asian cultures too. Like doctor, lawyers, it's a class thing. You know, we go back to the whole class thing. Like, hey, if you're a doctor, like you're suitable, you're
respected more.
Yeah, you're suitable to start a family. You know what I mean? Build a legacy off that. But there's so many different ways to do it now. You know, there's so many. That's what I like about the growing age and the new generation. We're looking at new ways to sort of expand and do things that are more creative, like
and that's
more of our culture.
And that's hopefully why I think like the new age now is probably a new leeway to bridge that gap between African Americans and African natives, because it's like, okay, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. You want to be an entrepreneur? Oh, I'm about to be an entrepreneur. You want to get into rap or Afrobeats or whatever? I'm gonna get into it. Like, it's more of a, okay, let's come together, you know what I'm saying? And I think what really helped that was mainstream media, especially with a lot of these artists that are collabing with Afrobeat artists in West Africa, like trying
our generation. I feel like our generation's really, because our previous generation, like baby boomers and like and Gen X, you know what I mean? They're getting a little bit older, a little more outdated, you know what I mean? And like they're not really thriving, you know what I mean? The way, like their ideology doesn't really work for everyone anymore. It's not a one size fits all, you know what I mean, type of society. And like I said, a lot of emerging people that are climbing to the top, you know what I mean, have no education whatsoever, you know what I mean, have like a base. It's about your skill sets. Obviously you need to acquire certain skill sets. That discipline is definitely something that will always be applicable, you know what I mean. The person that's hungrier, that's going to work, put the work in, you know what I mean. It's not, nothing really is going to substitute that, you know what I mean, but you need to be able to move with the times, you know, and you can't be stuck in a certain era. So and I think as time goes on, a lot of we're in an age where a lot of those flaws in society that we have as a society is going to be exposed, you know what I mean? I feel like we're in a new age where that's about to happen.
I'm excited. I mean, I think this is a good time. It's a good time. It is a good time. And I feel like, you know, when I hear podcasts, like, I don't know if you watched the Cameron podcast about how he basically said that he doesn't classify himself as African American because it'll be the same type of Africans that don't want to acknowledge that Black Americans are African. So he just kind of like wanted to strip away. And
it shouldn't be an outrage. When he says stuff like that, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, he doesn't know who he is, this and that, why you left in it. But you got to look at the deeper message, you know what I mean? He's speaking a heavy truth there. You know what I mean? He is.
Because there is definitely a lot of truth to that. Because I've seen it firsthand, you know, how, you know, my parents, you know, not even my parents, just like my parents' generation, they had this notation about Black Americans, and it was just so ingrained in our head growing up that like when I went to school and actually had friends from that culture and really sit there and be like, no, y'all, this is all a lie. Like this is not what my parents were saying. It's not what my aunts and uncles were like. This is not it, you know? So I feel like everything comes with research and understanding and just to sit there and really understand. Like, I'm gonna tell you how I feel, you can tell me how this goes, and let's see if we can come in the middle. I don't think it has to be a one size fits all, like you said, and nobody has to be right or wrong. There's no right and wrong in this situation. It's just a really it should be a learning experience for people to be like, okay, I get it now, you know? This is what they basically, I feel like Africans, like especially our parents' generation, were brainwashed about what really happens in this country before they came. Before they really came here.
There are true hierarchies. If you look at it, you know, especially in Sierra Leonean culture, it's just like, the Western white man was put on a pedestal. You know,
they still are.
It was a hierarchy.
No, they still are.
They are put on a pedestal.
They still are.
And like, there's some positive connotations as the way the white man conducts himself with colonialism and like the way they practice their culture. You know what I mean? But I feel like it was ingrained in you so deeply, especially in West African culture. I'm not going to talk about Sierra Leone culture because that was the way it was in the West, you know. And it just creates a divide, you know. And all it did here was create a bigger divide, and we're just look dysfunctional as a unit. We just look dysfunctional because when you look at any ethnic or anything that you fill out with an ethnic background, right? You see Caucasian, white, Hispanic, Asian, we're all grouped into one demographic, whether you want to accept it or not. You know, African American, you don't even distinguish between what region you're from, if you're
same with Afro Latinos and Afro Latinas. Laz Alfonso, he's a famous actor, he says that he classifies himself as black, but he's fully Cuban, 100% Cuban. But the guy is black. At the end of the day, if the cop pulls him over, they're not looking at him like, oh yeah, you're Cuban, or you know, I'm not gonna interrogate.
They don't differentiate. They don't
care.
You know, I mean, you're black at the end of the day.
You're black.
And like back in the day, I mean, it's things like I said, have gotten better now. Like police brutality is still a thing. You know what I mean? We're not gonna diminish that. You know, and I'm not gonna get too far into that. But you know, in more recent times, if they see a black man in a nice car, you know what I mean, they're gonna think that it's stolen, whether you own it or not. You know what I mean? They're gonna think it's stolen, and, you know, and in certain neighborhoods, you know. So like, it was still a thing. They didn't differentiate your background. You don't look, oh yeah, you're this part of. No, they
nobody
did not.
cares.
You know, didn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So, you look black, you're black.
But I feel like together, if we could sort of just get on the same page, you know, at the end of the day, if the African American community, you know, or the black community as a whole can just kind of just get on the same page and truly just have that foundation, I feel like we'd get a little bit more respect on that thing, and that would be a step forward.
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like that would you see a lot more success within our demographic.
Yeah. I just feel like, you know, I think the whole gap right now of why it's still, I guess, trending is that, you know, a lot of FOBs, they have an accent, or, you know, what I hate about blacks, or what I used to get, right, is that like, oh, like, you look African because of your skin tone, or you look African because of your big lips, or you look African because of your hair, or you look African because of how you dress. Like, stop that.
That looks like a Jim Crow propaganda poster.
Stop that. You know like, stop that. Because Africans come in all different shades. I'm going to say this again. Africans come in all different shades, all different hair types, eye colors, shades. So when you say we look African, that is the most ignorant comment you can possibly tell anybody. We're all the same. So we keep dividing this whole, you know, I'm not gonna hang out with so-and-so because they give you that African look and African is deemed as ugly. We gotta stop that too as well, because as a woman, I dealt with that as well, especially with my first and last name. They crossed me out automatically. Like, no, we're not even gonna talk to you, be friends with you. And it really diminishes that pride of trying to unify both entities together. Because at the end of the day, if I look African, you look African too. Yeah,
and
regardless,
what we need to do is just take a look back. You know what I mean? Not too hard, but we didn't learn from the mistakes from our predecessors. They made a lot of mistakes.
Who planted that? Who planted the whole big lips and big nose? Who planted it?
Propaganda artists, like people that were meant to diminish who we really were, our identity. You know, and I feel like that was a lot of beauty standards have changed. You know what I mean? We're seeing that. You know. And it needs to happen organically. But we need to accept that from within. You know, we need to stop within our culture. You know what I mean? Just put an end to like a lot of these biases that we have against each other, and just acknowledge who we are. Have self-respect. You know, have some self-respect. You know, as a whole. You know, everybody. You know what I mean? Anyone of color, we need to have some self-respect as a whole. Be enlightened, you know what I mean, and really don't be ignorant. Have the answer. Don't base anything off of speculation. You know, do the research and know what you're talking about. You know, And
yes, before you start putting it on social media and think everybody is like, oh yeah, this person's right, please.
Yeah. And then once you can learn from those mistakes, then we can move forward.
Yes. Yes, but this is good. This is a good conversation to start off. I definitely want to do more of these videos because, you know, there's so much to talk about with the African culture. There's so much to talk about with mainstream media and what it's doing to unify, you know, that gap that we're, you know, talked about today. And I just know that in the near future, I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing people come together and unify, and it's a great thing to see. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is a good start. I think we hit every point, I think, right, babe? Yeah. This is good. This is good. All right, guys. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you lovies later. Bye.
There we go.